And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning, and we are celebrating the 150th anniversary of the YMCA. Joining us now is CEO of the Y, Tim Schetzer. Good morning, Tim.
Thanks, Susie.
Well, thank you and congratulations. And may I ask, how many of those 150 years have you been a part of the Y?
That's a great question. Not 150.
No, let's hope not.
Believe it or not, I actually started in the Y in 1979, though, in Alliance, Ohio. So I have been around for a long time.
Did you use the services prior to employment, or were you a gym rat, or your own history with the Y?
Mm-hmm. Well, I did play basketball at the College of Worcester. So, and as we talked prior, the Y did invent basketball in 1891.
Let's talk about that. I think that would shock a lot of people. So basketball goes back to YMCA invented it. Tell us how that came about.
Well, it was actually a minister who invented it, believe it or not, by the name of James Naismith, who was from Canada, but invented the game in Massachusetts. In fact, his boss gave him 2 weeks to come up with a new game before all of the students at Springfield College went off for Christmas break. And so in 2 weeks, he came up with the game of basketball and, of course, used peach baskets because that's all they could find.
And what did they use for the balls for that they actually, it just seems like there wouldn't be something that would be right for it.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Susie. I think they ended up, if I remember correctly, using either a rugby ball or a soccer ball, but they used some other kind of ball.
And yet they could somehow dribble it and so forth.
Yeah, and then it really spread very fast because those 16 young men that he taught it to then went out on Christmas break all across the country and started teaching people at places like YMCAs all across the country this new game. And it really did spread like wildfire, especially here in Stark County.
Oh, well, yeah. And who would have dreamed what it would become today when we just, and the superstars that it would create? It's kind of really amazing. He had, I don't know if this came from him, but there was an interesting theory about muscular Christianity. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, and James Naismith, again, who received a degree in divinity from one school in Montreal, Canada, he was an avid and very good rugby player. And so the terminology muscular Christianity was that you could lead a team on the field on Saturday and then turn around on Sunday and lead a Sunday school class or a Bible class. So you could do both, spirit and body. And
that kind of seems like something that continues to this day, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the young people that we teach basketball to, and there's hundreds and probably thousands of youth in our basketball programs. And we talk both about not only the skill set, but also about the Christian principles as well.
Let's circle back to that. The Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA, everyone can do the dance. Everyone knows the song. But there are other organizations who have Christian in the title, but would say now that it's more their brand. It's not so much defining who they are. How much does the Christian part, how much does the C still apply in YMCA?
Well, I think when you go back 150 years, and I gave you some material from 100 years ago, and really it's amazing when you look at that material how that's the same language we talk about today. Not only developing people's bodies, but also their spirits and their minds. And we talk a lot, especially to the youth and also the adults, about really important Christian principles, like caring and respecting, and that's just very, very important to us. We talk about that all the time in meetings and in programs, and we certainly, before all of our meetings, offer up a prayer and devotional to ask for God's help to do this.
Mm-hmm. It's fun planning a 150th anniversary.
Well, it's fun, Susie, but we're realizing it's also a little overwhelming.
Yeah, a little.
Because there's a lot going on and a lot to accomplish in a short period of time.
Well, tell us, what have you got up your sleeves?
Well, it actually, the kickoff begins February 6th. We're going to have a family event at the McKinley Museum, since William McKinley was president of the Y back when it first started. And so that's where it kicks off. We have all kinds of activities. We have a basketball foul shooting contest that's really free. Anyone that will take the finals will take place at a can't charge game. We have all kinds of other activities. You'll see ads and historical articles in the paper. The repository has been wonderful so far, helping us and working with us. So, and then it really all centers on April 16th, 1866, because that's when the exact day 6 ministers in Canton got together and decided that they needed to have a YMCA in Stark County.
It's amazing. April 16th, 1866.
Yeah, I tell people that's, if you stop and think about it, that's the year after Lee surrendered to Grant in the
Yes.
Civil War.
Like almost to the day, like right around exactly the same time. 1 year after Lincoln was assassinated,
Good point.
and the YMCA comes into being. Back quickly, just an aside and also an observation, I'm sure at this time when basketball was invented, how many other indoor sports were there? Not that much. So he came up with something that could be done in the winter months, and for that, parents everywhere are grateful.
That's a good point. You know, actually, the Y back in the early 1900s had outstanding basketball teams.
Wow.
Charles Lindbergh was the director of the Y, who later became mayor of the city of Canton, and he was an accomplished basketball player, taught the skills to other young men and women. And we actually had teams in the early 1900s that beat Mount Union University.
Wow.
And beat a school called Ohio State University.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the women played as well, but looking through the archives, I couldn't find any scores or their opponents, but I did find that they wore bloomers, white tops with blue lace.
Well, that sounds like a great basketball uniform. Very practical. You must have found some other surprises as you're going through history. What are some fun things you've uncovered in the archives?
Well, I think going back to the whole fact that McKinley was just so instrumental in helping the Y and to get jump-started in the community.
Let's talk about that. He wasn't president yet. He would have served in the Civil War, Major McKinley, and then come back to the area. Let's talk about his involvement with the Y, becoming president of it.
Yeah, well, not only, and really the two key figures back at the beginning of the Y were President William McKinley and a man called Cornelius Altman, who maybe some people would have heard of. And actually, they helped secure a 10-year free lease for the YMCA space in the First National Bank in Canton, which has been demolished at this time. But that really helped jumpstart the Y. And I got a feeling President McKinley had a role in the first Y program in town, and that's when they brought a gentleman in by the name of Parson, who they called the Fighting Parson, because he was a military leader in the Civil War, a minister.
Wow.
And they brought him into the area to help raise money to start the first library in the area.
Oh, my.
And they raised enough money to buy 800 books, and Y members could use the library during the day, and then they opened up to the public in the evening.
So interesting. We're talking to Tim Schutzer. He's CEO of the YMCA, working on the celebration of the 150th anniversary of the YMCA. That's nationally. And kind of fun looking at something that you brought in. I'll try to describe it. It is a 100-year-old publication called The Hub, and a beautiful photo of a then brand new YMCA building. Talk about where the Y has been located through the years here in Canton.
Well, it was located in numerous places. The first actual building was on the corner of McKinley and Tusk, that's since been torn down. The Y actually sold that to the Moose.
The Moose Lodge.
the Moose Lodge, and then moved over to 2nd Street or 4th Street in Canton. But yeah, that building had 100 rooms, resident rooms, because back at that time, the Y was actually the largest number of hotel rooms in the country. With all of the rooms we had. Dick Kempthorne, a lot of people know the Kempthorne Motors.
Sure.
His father stayed at the Y when he first came to Canton from Sharedsville. He was a coal miner in Sharedsville and did not want to do that for the rest of his life, so came to Canton. And actually at that time, the Y had an automotive school. We taught young men how to repair cars.
Wow.
And so I think Mr. Kempthorne's father
he
was
learned
involved
something
with that.
there, yes.
Yeah, very, very interesting history in the area.
It has, and it has served a number of different purposes. As you say, you think of it in those early days as being a place where young people first going out on their own would stay prior to buying their first home or moving into an apartment or so forth. It almost served as that first apartment for a young person in the area. What current services are available? What happens at the YMCA now?
You know, I think, Susie, the beauty of the Y is not only here, but really across the country and around the world, that the Y board members and leaders have been flexible enough to recognize needs in the community and then to help work with those needs. So as needs change over generations and through society, for example, there's very few YMCAs now in the country that have resident rooms, but one of our largest programs now is child care, which 50 years ago we were not involved with. But so many families need quality, caring child care. And so we actually provide child care to over 1,200 youth throughout Stark County at about 20 different sites.
Really?
Right now. That's our largest program right now.
And this serves ages what?
We have an infant toddler program that's in the North Canton community. We have a preschool program in North Canton, Minerva, but primarily it's elementary age school children, before school, after school.
And this sounds to me like it's more like serving families rather than just men.
Correct, yeah. When you look at our constituents, families is really who we serve. In fact, our 150th slogan, if you will, is encouraging healthy families for 150 years. So that's really our main focus.
It's so interesting. Oh golly, we're going to have to take a break here in just a minute. But we are visiting with Tim Schetzer. He is the CEO of the YMCA for Stark County.
Correct.
Where all in Stark County would we find Ys? I'm thinking of the downtown Canton one, but there are others.
Yeah, there's actually 12 branches of the Y throughout Stark County. And actually, you know, the Y didn't start in Canton or Stark County. It actually came over from Boston. And before that, it actually originated in London, England.
So interesting.
In 1844, came across to Boston in 1851 by a sea captain, and then made its way across the country to Canton, Ohio in 1866.
Very cool. Well, we're going to find out more about the international impact after these words. You're listening to Our Community.